Welcome to the 16th episode. We're old enough to drive.
Sweet 16.
Of the GameFor Podcast. In this episode, we will be looking back at our favorites in tabletop gaming in 2019 and ahead at what 2020 has to offer.
Ooh.
It's a brand new decade, 2020.
It is.
I have a hard time writing that on checks for all 2 checks I write every month. Yeah. I'm Adam.
I'm Matt.
And we are part of Milkcan, hence the big sign there if you're watching here on the YouTubes. But we are the company, and we make an app called GameFor, and it is for connecting tabletop gamers. It is designed to bring tabletop gamers together to help you find people to play with in your local area, find stores in your local area, find gaming groups, conventions, all kinds of stuff. And it's available for iOS and Android and also on the web. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later, but right now, it's been 2 weeks since the last show, and we're going to talk about what we've been doing since the last 2 weeks, like in our own personal hobby stuff.
Yeah, so I finally have my first kill team done.
Nice. The orcs.
The orcs are done.
Orcs
They're ready to play.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So that is huge.
And we're going to do that soon.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, I've got a little bit. Well, I mean, I'll get to that stuff in later, but yeah, I'm looking forward to doing that.
Yeah. So that was the big accomplishment, and then
Mm-hmm.
I have to figure out what I'm doing next.
What are you doing next?
I've got a lot of.
You do have a lot of the
Plastic.
WizKids, like
Yeah.
unpainted dudes
Yeah.
that you use for Dungeons and Dragons.
I've
and
got
such.
those.
That's honestly, that would be for me. That would be the next slam dunk, because you could go through and like do like a couple of these guys and a couple of these guys, and then it's a
Right.
little bit more buffet style, and you can really like, you're not like, oh my gosh, I have to get so many of these guys done. You just do
Right.
some of these and some of those, and it's kind of fun
And I've done
that
a
way.
few already. So
Yeah.
I've been liking those. And then, and I've got the Conflict 47 starter kit that
Yep, that's true as well.
I've had for over a year now.
Yeah, I've got mine as well.
So
I've got some of it built. I've got a tank built, and one of the walker dudes built, and maybe
Cool.
through 3 or 4 of the dudes. That's about it.
I've got orc terrain that I have assembled but have not painted.
Yeah, that's helpful too.
Yeah. Okay. I guess I
It's
have
always
plenty.
something.
Yep.
Yep.
And then starting to work with one of my friends who's in my D&D group to do a RPG Thursday, I think is what we're planning on. If we get enough people local, it'll be a local thing. If not, it will be probably Discord.
Sure, a little bit online sort of
yeah.
situation. Sure.
Or it might be kind of a mix depending on the week. And it's going to be kind of a traveling GM. So whoever wants to run a game, kind of like what I've been doing on Discord semi-regularly already, but this is going to be just...
That's on like Tuesday nights, right?
Yeah, we were trying to do Tuesday nights, and haven't done it recently, so we're hoping the Thursday will work out better. So
Is it just a scheduling thing for folks?
seems to be,
Yeah.
and just busy, and yeah. So
Sometimes just the busyness alone is difficult, because it's just difficult to find the time. You know, if you've got lots of stuff going on, you've got 3 kids, and they all want you to look at them and eat.
yeah,
they want to eat.
They have their own hobbies.
Ugh, yeah. I mean, come on, really. But yeah.
How about you?
Yeah. How about me? Well, I'm working very slowly on the basement organization still, again with the sad emoji face. It's hard because I don't want to do it. Turns out that I'm really lazy on things that I don't like.
Huh.
Yeah, no, it's weird. I know.
See, I like doing stuff I don't like.
That doesn't make any sense. I don't think that's true. But yeah, so it's slow going, and I've got a bunch of other stuff going on, and so that's been a problem. I mentioned in the last episode that I have cheated some, because I was like, I'm not going to do any hobby until I get the basement done, because it's the carrot and the stick, and I need to have something to, as a goal. I have done a little bit of
Star
kit
Rage.
bashing stuff, and some building and some fun stuff like that. But I've also I did a little bit of paint stripping on some models as I've been cleaning and stuff. I've been like, oh, I forgot about these, and then you throw them into like a leftover sour cream container that you filled up with. Lately, I've been using something called LA's Totally Awesome, which you get at the dollar store, and it's bright yellow. You get 32 ounces of it for $1, and man, does it take the paint off of stuff. So I kind of like that. Yeah. Anyway, so I did a little bit of that. That's fine. Otherwise, I've been. I was working a bunch of basically for my YouTube channel. I decided that the last episode of 2019, I wanted to do something brand new, so I did an awards ceremony.
Ooh.
So I wanted to talk about, and I didn't want to be like a normal awards ceremony where you like have specific,
like this
like
category.
categories and stuff like that. So if there's like 3 things in one category, like I got these things, and then there's one of these, and I don't talk about terrain at all or whatever, that kind of stuff. It's just totally dependent on. There's no voting. It's just all me.
So just kind of a picks of the year type.
It's
thing.
it's the stuff that I think was the coolest for the year, and you may disagree, and that's fine. I'm not like basing stuff off of sales or anything along those lines. I'm just like, these are things that I think are cool. You may want to check them out,
Like
or you may not.
Uncle Adam's approved.
Right? Yeah. So I it was a lot of going through trying to figure out what stuff I wanted to have in there. And then actually just like generating like all the graphics I was going to need and all that jazz and all that stuff. So that took up a bunch of time too, towards the end of the year.
That's awesome.
So yeah, but yeah, that's pretty much what I've been doing as far as that's concerned.
Nice.
Yeah. So we do have a question again.
Nice.
This episode, and it is by. Would we call Tim a super fan? We get a lot of communication with Tim, and he's been very helpful with us.
Uber fan.
Yeah, and he's been like he's debugged stuff and told us about things, and just he comments on nearly everything, and it's great. And so he asked us kind of it was like a group of questions.
Yeah. And it kind of spawned us, and we're like, ooh, that would be really good for doing kind of a year retrospective.
Right, because it was kind of a retrospective question about the year and stuff like that. And so we kind of, this is one of those where the question and the topic are sort of tied together. Or,
in fact,
one reads into the other.
I think we've held this one for a couple months now. I think I even...
Now that you mention it, I think that's true.
I even had to like message him when we were like, oh, we're out of questions, going, well, we have that one, but
you were sure, right?
We just didn't have...
Yeah,
other questions.
That's true. So this is from Tim, and the question is, will you, as GameFor, attend any EU, and EU is the European Union, events in 2020? What is the next for the app, and when will the web version leave beta? And will we get an API to hook up to our calendars, Google, Outlook, Nextcloud, etc.? I've never heard of Nextcloud. So the first question first is probably about whether we're planning on attending any EU events in 2020. Currently, I would say we aren't planning on it. I mean, there's Spiel, which I may be pronouncing. Is it Spiel or Spiel? I don't think there's any. I don't think there's an CH in there anywhere. I think it's just SP.
Spiel.
It's Spiel. But yeah, it sounds like Spiel. Anyway, yeah, but Spiel. Yeah, I mean. The thing that we've been finding, as we've done some conventions and stuff, is that normal, like, consumer-facing conventions are not necessarily super ROI positive for us, which is to say return on investment. Like, we went to, was it 2018 Origins?
Yeah, we did Origins and Nexus, which is in Milwaukee.
Which is a local Milwaukee one. We went to
that was our
Fire and Ice.
Potpourri, like, try a whole bunch of different types of conventions and see what works.
And for us, like, Origins is a cool convention, don't get me wrong, but for us, sitting there in a booth and not having anything to sell, just basically telling people about the app, didn't necessarily. I mean, it was cool, and I'm glad we did it, but I don't know that it was a thing that we were going to do year after year. We didn't go this year.
ROI,
I went.
Yeah, the ROI just wasn't there for us.
Right. Now, that being said, we're not against conventions all told. We're really more into trade shows, which we'll get into a little bit later on, and we've been doing some of those. But I don't know that we have any plans to go to the EU now.
Not direct, but once the project will hint at later, that might change.
Sure, that's true. Yeah, that's true.
But
my wife and I might go to the UK, which I know is technically they're not. Well, who's to say whether they're part of the EU anymore? I don't even know. I've not been able to keep up. But yeah, in theory, my wife and I might be going to the UK sometime in 2020. I don't know. We were kind of thinking springish, but we'll see. Originally, we were thinking fall of 2019, but then it didn't work out, and then my mom broke her leg and all that kind of stuff. So that's been a thing. But yeah, so I might be there, and my wife might be. But
and I have promised my wife that we will go to Europe, and it is our 15th wedding anniversary next year.
Yeah, see, ours was last year, and that was the
So
thing. Yeah.
we were supposed to for the 15th, but I don't know.
Yeah.
We planned that before we planned all the kids stuff. So
You mean having kids?
well, all the expenses and stuff that comes
Sure,
with
yeah.
kids.
Those
So-
kids, again, they want you to look at them and feed them and stuff.
and taking the wife to live in a hostel is not.
No, that's not. Well, I mean, unless
Super
she's into
romantic.
that. If the both of you are like, we really love living in weird hostels, while you travel backpack around Europe, that's cool. But you guys are not necessarily hostels.
Yeah, no.
Hostile folks. Yeah. So as far as EU events, nothing planned. I might show up potentially in the UK with my wife. When I do, I'll let people know. But we don't have any official GameFor anything for EU at this point.
As the app grows and we get more languages and all that stuff,
Oh yeah.
it would definitely be something we would plan on looking at.
Yeah.
It's just right now, 2020 is still.
I'd like to just go to
Tuesday.
Spiel and check it out.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like, but not necessarily have a booth and all that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
'Cause that may just not be the best. But there could be other reasons. I mean, we could go and have meetings and stuff like that.
Right.
But actually having a booth is not necessarily, what we're looking at. So to answer the first of the multiple part question, the EU thing probably not for 2020. What's the next for the app, and when will the web version leave beta? We'll talk about what's next for the app in a bit. So
Right.
that's part of that. And when will the web version leave beta?
I would say right now it's pretty much out of beta at this point.
I mean, it's close.
it's got it's feature complete at this point.
Is the web version's feature complete?
Yep, as of like a couple weeks ago.
No kidding. Even the group
everything.
messaging, all that stuff.
Oh,
All
it's
right,
fully there. So yeah,
Cliff's been working hard on it.
yeah,
but,
Cliff is our web guy, and he finally got through. We've had him on a bunch of other projects, and he
Sure.
finally got to focus on it again and nailed everything else out.
Because
So-
again, for those of you that don't know, like Milk Can is the business that makes GameFor, but we also work with other companies a
Right.
lot. So we do a lot of client work. So there's times when GameFor gets pushed to the side a bit because we have a lot of client work to
right,
do.
they typically like their stuff coming ahead of ours.
Right. No, I get that.
weird.
I get that. Yeah. So basically, the web version will leave beta when I finally decide to make a new header that says that it's not beta anymore to some degree.
Right. Yeah. Right now we're kind of it should be feature complete. We're not aware of anything that's missing,
Yeah.
and we're kind of monitoring to make sure that we haven't broken anything.
That we've got everything that we need to have. Yeah.
Because we did a major upgrade on the backend software as well. It took us that alone took like 2 weeks for a couple of the guys.
Yeah.
Because it had to go through multiple iterations to get us up to date again, and that broke some stuff. So we're basically right now it's kind of in a very late beta, I would say.
Right.
So probably early 2020 is when we'll officially take the beta off. I'm guessing
Sure.
probably right around that March, like
Yeah, in time
timeframe.
for like the Gamma trade show
and our
Reno.
2-year anniversary.
Yeah, that's a good point. And then lastly, will we get an API to hook up to our calendars? What does API stand for again? I mean, I know what it does, but I can't remember what it
Access
means.
protocol interface,
Something
believe.
like that. Yeah. So what it is, an API is basically it's usually designed to be kind of a public sort of data hookup, so that you can, as a programmer, make your thing attached to the data coming out of somebody
Right.
else's thing.
Right. It's like it's basically a communication contract agreements. Like if I send you all this information, you'll send me back this information.
Right. And so the question in this situation is like, how do I get this so that I can make it so that the events that I have, let's say I say I'm going to an event, I'm going to, I don't know, Friday Night Magic, and I want it to show up in my phone's calendar. That's something we can do.
Yeah, the export should be working already for that.
I'm just talking about like regular, like into your like right in, let's say iOS, because I got an iOS phone. If I say, hey, I'm going to this event, I've had other apps where it's just like, cool, we're going to put that in your normal calendar.
Oh, yeah, because right now it's just like a single export or something.
Well, we've got stores that are using the ability to export to Google Calendar.
Oh, that's what I'm thinking of.
Right.
Okay.
No, I'm talking about I'm a user and I'm saying
Seeking it. Yeah.
I'm going to this RSVP.
That's why I was confused.
Right, yeah. So that's something that we can do. We just
Yeah.
haven't really had a ton of call for it, but it's not a bad idea. We do have notifications in the app
Right.
that allow it to let you know ahead of time, like, hey, by the way, you said you were going to go to this thing and it's coming up tomorrow or whatever. But the ability to be able to put, like, say, do you want to add this to your calendar in your phone? Yes, cool. What you were kind of more talking about, I think, or thinking about at least, was the ability for stores, when they build a list of events,
Right.
they can export that to Google Calendar if they use Google Calendar, let's say, on their website.
Right. Versus using, or we have our own proprietary calendar they can use as well. But some
Right.
people, that
Like if you don't use
works
Google
better.
Calendar, or if you don't like Google Calendar in your store, you can make it so that your events, we give you a link, and then you just put that link wherever, on your Facebook, on your website, whatever,
Correct.
and it can be embedded, and then it's like an actual, usable calendar that you can switch between months and click on stuff, and then it shows you all the information. But if you're talking about, I want to make it so that I can have my events automatically go into my phone, in my calendar, it's something that can be done because other people do it.
Yeah.
But it's not something we've looked too far into at this point.
Right. So if you would like that feature as well as Tim,
You're
let
right,
us
yeah.
let
Absolutely.
us know.
Yeah.
The more we hear about feature requests, the higher up in the order it goes.
As far as being able to, and we've had a bunch of different stores and groups and things like that request to us. They're like, hey, can we make it so that when I put an event in a GameFor, it goes into Facebook, or vice versa? I put something into Facebook and goes into GameFor. That is not allowed by Facebook.
Thanks, Zuckerberg.
Right, yeah. Thanks, Mark. They don't allow for that. They
Right.
do not have any kind of
They
access
will
like
share
that.
your information, but will not share their information.
Exactly, yes. It's kind of the way it works. So yeah, that's kind of an issue. And we can, kind of fix that. Well, what we do in that situation then is we just tell you, let's say you're a store or a club, or mainly a store, you just take that link that we give you for your calendar and then put that into Facebook, and then people click on it, it opens up a page, and it has all your stuff. So
then
it's-
everything's synced. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. And you're right, everything is always constantly synced. Or
Right.
is it sunk? Sync?
Synced.
I don't know. So yeah, that's kind of where that's at as far as that's concerned. So I hope that mostly answered Tim's question for him. I mean, I know we kind of kicked the can down the road a little bit on a couple of these things, which
Right.
we're going to talk about in the next section. But
But we also threw in some extra stuff. So
we did. That's true.
Hopefully it satisfies.
Yeah. But talking about satisfaction, because we read Tim's question on the air, we're going to mail him a T-shirt, a special edition. You can only get it if your question is read on the podcast T-shirt.
Right. Even Adam and I do not have this
I don't
shirt,
have one. No.
'cause my question's not been on.
I keep writing questions and we never read them. And so, so we'll be doing that. So if you're interested in getting a T-shirt, and you've got a question, then you should send us a message. You can either put it into Facebook or Twitter or YouTube comments, or you could send us an email at podcast. Is it podcast or podcasts? Podcast. That makes more sense.
Yep.
Podcast at IamGameFor.com, which we will also reference again at the end of this very podcast.
Perfect. All right. Are we ready for our topic?
Yes, which is, again, kind of vaguely related to some degree, but it's inspired by, we'll say that. So this year has been a good year.
Yes.
And we're talking a little bit about this year, not just GameFor related stuff, but stuff like tabletop gaming things that happened in 2019 that we thought were cool.
Yep.
We'll talk a little bit about that, and then we'll also talk a little bit about stuff we're excited about coming out into 2020.
Yep.
And also some stuff we got coming for GameFor in 2020.
Yes.
I think that's pretty much the agenda.
That sounds pretty accurate.
Yeah. So do you want to start with the tabletop stuff that you liked?
Sure. I will give it a shot. Okay. So the first on my list is all of the waves of WizKids D&D miniatures that came out this year.
Yes, there have been many.
There have been many, and there's more to come.
Do you have a favorite yet?
The Iron Golem, this last one, was really... I just really like the model, but there's been so many good ones that Eye Beholder, technically it came out 2018, I think, but...
At least 2018, if not
Beholder.
2017. That was one of the earliest ones, the Beholder.
But the Gazers that came out this year, there were so many good ones.
Yeah.
But yeah, the quality is just astounds me.
I think
for
the only
cost.
one that I bought so far in 2019 was the Grim Reaper one.
I was just about to say the
That was
Grim
a good
Reaper
one,
one
too.
was a good one.
Yeah.
You did the Cthulhu.
Oh, that's right, the big Spawn of Cthulhu or whatever, Cthulhu
coming
Star
out.
Child or whatever, coming out of the water.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I want to paint that guy soon. That was a very cool model.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, they've had some really good stuff. Like I painted a bunch of them at Origins.
Right.
Because I taught 3 classes at Origins for WizKids / Vallejo, and we painted a frost giant, a hill giant, and a triceratops
Right.
giant. No, I just made up that last part. But it was a Triceratops, not a Triceratops giant.
Yeah.
And that was fun. They were cool models.
And the big ship that they did. I believe those was kids that did the ship as well.
Oh yeah, the big boat.
Yep.
And then they have like tentacles and kraken stuff going on too, maybe, or
it was either
was that a separate kit?
That might have been a separate kit. I'm pretty sure it's a separate kit.
Yeah. That was also pretty cool.
What do you think? We'll just go back and forth, maybe.
So
maybe we'll each pick one or two.
Oh, that might be hard. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
All right. Yeah.
Well, okay. So I think this one's on both of our lists, but the contrast paints from Citadel.
Yeah,
I was more excited about it than you, maybe.
Sure. I think the contrast paints are great.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think some of them are great.
Yeah.
There are some colors that are not great.
Yeah, there's
a couple of colors that are just. There's one color in specific. It's called ultramarine
blue. Ultramarine blue,
I think is what it is, and it's just not good. I don't like it. But there's a bunch of colors like snakebite leather and skeleton horde, and those are amazing.
Skeleton horde is, I think, my favorites.
Yeah, and if you look at like specifically like stuff that I've been doing, a lot of painting that I did this year was Stormtroopers for Star Wars Legion.
Mm-hmm.
The Apothecary White contrast paint and the Black Templar contrast paint are spectacular for painting Space Marines Stormtroopers.
Yep.
For those of you that don't know what contrast paints are, they're made by Games Workshop, aka Citadel. That's kind of their hobby line, and normally when you try to paint something, you paint it a base color, and then you use like something called a wash to darken the recesses and make the shadows kind of pop out a little bit more. And then you have to highlight the raised parts by usually like kind of rubbing some paint on a rough brush that's very dry, that's slightly lighter color than the original base color that you put down. So those are 3 steps. With contrast, the idea is that you only have to do one step.
Right.
You literally, they tell you to put on one thick coat, which is opposite to the normal.
Thin your paints.
Yeah, everything is always 2 thin coats. Make sure you paint everything in 2 thin coats. And in this, they tell you, nope, just one big thick coat. Splop. And that's a technical term. And you put that on there, and then it sinks into the recesses. It's like stains the middle areas and makes them color whatever.
Right.
And then it sinks down into the darker areas in the lower parts, the details.
Gets a little thicker.
It gets a little thicker, so it's darker. But it also pulls away from like the raised parts a little bit more, which gives it more of a highlight. And it's specific colors are astounding because of the how good they do it.
Right.
The reason that I don't like the ultramarine blue is it's not that I don't like the color. It's that when I put it on, it just doesn't do the contrast thing.
That particular pigment just doesn't react as well as
it just doesn't ones. It doesn't pull away from the highlights to lighten those up, the raised parts, and it does not sink down into the bottom parts or whatever. Just everything looks like it's one color. So that's my personal preference, but they are amazing for getting things done quickly.
Yeah, for the matching with like the Whiz Kids that are already primed. I mean, it's basically I can whip through those pretty fast, and they come out looking amazing.
Yeah, they're a hoot,
especially non-metallic stuff, like so all your creatures and stuff like that, like
organic things.
Yeah, the organic ones. I feel like it just goes really fast, speeds up those. So
yeah, oh yeah. I've seen a ton of the what is it? The figure, the Dewback from Star Wars, the Star Wars Legion game. There's the big lizard that the Stormtroopers ride, like they were in the 4th movie in New Hope, the original movie that came out. They're riding the big green Dewbacks out in the desert. And because they have the scaly surface to their skin, like that stuff, if you use one of those greens, it just you put it on one coat, maybe do a little bit of highlighting, and you're done, and it looks really nice. So,
yeah, my bugbears look amazing. Their fur,
yeah, it's good for fur too. Absolutely, yeah.
Another thing I put on was, even though it's not just 2019, was the 3D printing.
Well, this is
my list, but
it is your list, but it's also your introduction to 3D printing.
Right. So I officially started 3D printing in 2019, and it finally got to a point where the price was great. There's so many like ways to get into it and things to do, and so it finally hit a point for me where I was like ready to take that hobby on, and I'm excited for all the stuff like it's done already, and all the stuff I see that I can do in the future. So
absolutely,
it's a cool tech.
Yeah. I because you bought a filament printer, so that's the kind with the spool of the plastic and all that kind of stuff. And you've been mainly printing. You've been printing a bunch of dungeon tiles because it's really good for terrain stuff.
Right, but I've done like there's some miniatures that they weren't out. The WizKids didn't have any. Reaper didn't have any, and I needed them for one of my next for doing some on what was it, free RPG day.
Oh right, yeah. You were running free RPGs at a local store here.
Yeah, so I needed some miniatures, and so I found some models and was able to kind of make it work.
Nice. And they came out even through that type of printer. They were like what 28 millimeter scale, so that's like a couple inches high, but they still came out with decent detail.
Yeah, and I found then after I'd done that, I found some that were like I needed a mass of them, and I had some already from Reaper, and so they were kind of the same style. And setting them side by side, you can pretty much not. If I didn't tell the person which one they were, they couldn't tell.
Did you paint them?
They have not been painted yet. They're primed.
Oh, but so primed because otherwise usually it's a color situation. Like Reaper Bones stuff is generally done in white, although their newer stuff is done in a dark gray. But
I had printed them in gray. So before I told the person what they were like, that one's, and I'm like, nope, this one was the 3D printed one.
Wow, so, nice.
I mean, if you look
super
out,
close,
but from tabletop, it was
or
great.
if you know what you're looking for, like you're kind of hyper aware. Yeah, I get that.
So,
what else? Oh yeah, there's a bunch of.
And then so my next one is I feel that Wizards did a great job with 5e content this year for Dungeons and Dragons.
5th edition Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, so highlights Ghost of Saltmarsh. That was a popular older campaign that they reintroduced. But they also got a lot of boat seafaring rules brought in.
Yeah, not
Spelljammer yet, but close enough.
Spelljammer was that's where you're hoping more than I am. But I still think it's a cool idea that they should try to bring back. Spelljammer was an old school D&D campaign / setting where you were flying around in space, but in like boats that were magically.
Yeah, the wizards basically made a little air bubble and were piloting,
and then you would go from planet to planet and whatnot. Yeah.
Someday.
Yeah.
Eberron finally became an official campaign setting in 5e, so that's all your Warforged and stuff. The first time I was really introduced to Eberron was the D&D online.
Oh, sure, yeah, back in the day, on the computer.
Yeah, so that's been fun. And then their Stranger Things starter set, which was kind of the red box.
Oh, yeah.
But then it was, themed and campaigned after the what the boys are playing in Stranger Things.
So the Demogorgon and all that stuff.
Yeah, so what they're actually playing is basically what you get to play, and I've run it twice now, and both times, people really like it. So
does that one? It doesn't bring in. I mean, it brings in obviously the characters. I'm assuming.
Right, you're not the boys.
Well, no, but you're probably their characters. That
you're
they
their
play.
characters.
Right.
They got those for pre-gens.
But there's not like any Stranger Things stuff in the campaign per se.
No, there's. The Upside Down is part of it.
Sure.
The Demogorgon, all those are.
But otherwise, it's more a little bit more regular D&D fare to some degree. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. What else you got there? Oh, there's two more things you can see.
I put one in the wrong spot. Actually, both of those are in the. Well, yeah, both of those are in the wrong spot.
Oh, okay. Are they for future?
Yeah, they're for the future.
Gotcha. All right.
I threw it in the wrong.
Not a problem. So. So for me, 2019, I found two new. Again, being a predominantly a war gamer, a miniatures player, I found two new games that I really like. They're both science fiction based, and they are. The thing that's really cool about them is that they don't. A lot of miniatures, you make a rule set and then you make a whole bunch of miniatures, and then you're trying to get people to buy both. Some smaller indie companies have a tendency to, because miniatures cost so much to produce, they have a tendency to make rule sets that are agnostic, like miniature agnostic. You don't need to. They don't go, oh, well, this has to work with this line, this has, whatever.
Right.
So you can buy and use whatever kind of miniatures you want. Sometimes when that happens, those companies have a tendency to try to make it completely generic. So, like, you can have Aztecs versus astronauts. You could have, dogs versus, space troopers or whatever. And so that's like going too far. this year I found 2 different starter kind of like indie rule sets that are designed to be sci-fi based.
Okay.
So you don't have that Aztecs versus Indian situation, or Aztecs versus astronauts situation, so it's sci-fi people versus sci-fi people. But they don't, again, there's no miniature line that these companies are selling, so you can use whatever miniatures you want.
Got it.
One is a game called Zone Raiders, which I first found out about at the Nova Open. No, not the Nova Open. The Las Vegas Open.
Oh, okay, yep.
In Las Vegas, strangely enough, which was in February in 2019. And they had a booth there, and they were going to be doing a Kickstarter, so I got on the Kickstarter. And it's a cool system. It's very different than a lot of other games as far as the storyline. And you can use kind of whatever models you want to use, which is cool. But yeah, if you're interested in, the game basically takes place in a Dyson sphere.
Yes.
And a Dyson sphere is a concept about how if a society gets technologically advanced enough, they will eventually build a device that goes around a star to harvest all of the energy from the star.
Yes, there is a Star Trek TNG episode.
Nice.
With
uses the same thing.
Yep, and they bring Scotty back.
Oh yeah, well that makes sense. But yeah, so the thing is that the majority, the people who are playing in the game, like the different forces fighting against each other, do not realize that's where they are. Like they don't remember Earth. They've just always lived in this weird technological layered kind of something. They know that there's like something special if they keep going down. They do not realize that it is a star that will probably kill them if they get too close to it. And so they've been living there for, at this point, millions of years and evolving and all this stuff. And so it's this weird kind of post-human sort of cool concept game, and you can really get really interesting modeling situations. You can do a lot of kit bashing and stuff like that with the models that you would use for that game, and I think that's kind of a lot of fun. The other game that I've been getting into, which I just found out about like in the later part of the year, is a game called Star Breach. And Star Breach is also a sci-fi miniatures agnostic style game. Not so much story as in Zone Raiders. It's much more about, here's a rule set that's really solid.
Okay.
And it is designed also, like in the back of the book, they have these like different factions and stuff like that, which Zone Raiders has as well. It's just if you know stuff about miniatures games, you start reading the faction, you're like, oh, these are supposed to be Adeptus Mechanicus from 40K.
Sure.
And oh, these are supposed to be Jedi. And so they're kind of focusing a bunch of their factions on a bunch of the currently selling models that are out there. They're just changing the names.
Okay.
And obviously the stats are totally different because the system's totally different.
Sure.
But there is a group in that game that is basically the Necrons from 40K. So if you've got the Necrons, which are like these kind of weird robot skeletons, then you can just use them in this game. And so they have like, but I said it's not just Warhammer. It's also there's Star Wars in there. There's a couple other games that I can't think of off the top of my head. But then there's also several factions, and there's a bunch of factions in this game. I don't know, 20-ish. Some of the factions in the game are also just totally kind of like, I don't want to say made up, but like there's like a space pirate style faction.
Okay.
There's kind of like almost like so different tropes that are out there without actually getting into an IP battle. Okay. An intellectual property battle. But they're not trying to like take anything away from any company or whatever. They're just saying, look, you've probably got Space Marines hanging around like in a box underneath your bed.
Right.
You've got maybe some Eldar in your closet or whatever the deal is. So you could use those models in this game very simply.
So just a way to play a different game without having to rebuild.
Yeah. So you've got, and the reason that we even found out about it, honestly, was I think I found about it through some sort of social media post. But the reason that we started looking into it is because a small group of guys that I play with sometimes, we were all interested in making some very highly modified like war bands to play with, and that was going to be the point, was to highly modify and tweak these war bands. But we wanted to find a rule set that we could then play the games with that we all agree on. And like I like Kill Team, but like a couple of guys don't like Kill Team, and then we're like, well, what about Necromunda? And we were going back and forth and not finding anything. The benefit is that this Star Breach has a free PDF. Okay. So everybody kind of likes free within this group. So we all and it's a good rule set too. It's got a lot of really cool parts that it's pulled from some other games and kind of put them together in an interesting way. So they do have a hardcover that they sell, although I think they were limited edition. They're having a soft cover that's coming out in early 2020, so you could buy that. You can also buy the If you want, you can download the PDF, but there's also an enhanced PDF that's like $10. It has like more stuff in it, and I think better artwork and junk like that. So cool systems, both, I think, both Zone Raiders and Star Breach. Different. Zone Raiders, much more story like included in the game, whereas Star Breach is not particularly, but it's just designed for playing fun skirmishes with stuff that you probably already have. We talked a little bit about the Games Workshop contrast colors, or contrast paints, as a lot of people talk about them. I've gone through and used, I believe, and I need to double check on this, I believe I have used all of them at this point.
Oh, wow.
They sent me the whole line. Games Workshop did. They sent me the whole line back in early June. And so I think at this point I've at least tested all of them, which is why I've found some that I really like and some that I don't. But the ones that I really like I said, when I was painting those stormtroopers for Star Wars Legion, just that apothecary white, it's just so, I did a video about how fast and quick you can make stormtroopers with those two colors alone, and it's just spectacular. That color, and then they have another color called Black Templar, which is what you do all the dark bits with, like the gun and the weird, like on the elbows and the knees where you can kind of see the suit that's
like
underneath
a nice
the
dark gray to a black.
But it still has got a little bit of a highlight when in the raised parts and stuff. And the big benefit, honestly, of all of the contrast paints, one of the big benefits of the contrast paints is how fluid they are. So like if you get enough in your brush, when you like touch it in that kind of spot between like the panels on the knee, it just sort of flows in and fills in the rest of that area, which normally you would do with a wash, because washes are very fluid, whereas paints are a lot thicker. So most paints won't run to fill out an area, whereas this, it's called capillary action. This will actually like blurp and like fill up the area that's supposed to be the sunken area, but then still be very dark. Whereas a lot of washes, or if you thin down paints to make them very fluid, then they get thin, and then you have to do it over and over and over again if you want something dark.
Right.
So anyway, that was very cool. Another thing I got into this year, because I've been doing more kit bashing and stuff like that, is resin bits. So bits in wargaming are, and it's usually spelled B-I-T-Z, but bits are the extra pieces. Like if you buy a kit of some type of, I don't know, soldiers or whatever you get, very frequently there's extra stuff left over.
Right.
Because they want you to be able to customize and build them. Like you get 5 guys in this box, but there's a bunch of different weapons and you can't use all of them.
Right, or all the heads.
Or all the heads. Sometimes they give you optional heads and optional all kinds of stuff. So what you do is you save all that stuff. And then later on when you're like, I want to build this guy and I want to give him a different head, then you go dig through your little box of heads and then you glue a different head in there or whatever. But there are also now companies that have been doing this actually for years now, but I started looking more into it this year. There are companies out there that just make heads. You know, you're not using them from a kit from a specific manufacturer. They just make their own stuff. They're like, we've never seen heads that look like this before, so we're going to make them. And then people can buy them and then put them onto the conversions that they do on their models, or guns, or shoulder pads, or, all kinds of different stuff. And so that's very cool. So I went online and I bought a lot of heads for a while, because I've been doing these modifications and stuff, and some other stuff, guns and whatnot. And so some of the companies that I really liked their product from was Anvil Industries. Anvil Industries is very good. Puppets War is another one that I like a lot, and Spellcrow. All three of those are probably my favorite three that I've gotten some really cool stuff from. From Anvil Industries, too, I also bought not just stuff for 28 millimeter games, but I also bought they make a bunch of stuff for Gaslands. So you buy your Matchbox cars, and then you get these parts from Anvil Industries, and they have little mini machine guns you can glue on them, or flamethrowers, or armor plating, and all kinds of cool stuff like that. Now you can make all that stuff yourself,
right?
It's just really nice and quick to be able to just go, I'm just going to grab this piece of armor plating and put it on the back, So that was very cool too. So I don't know. I think that's pretty much all of our 2019.
A pretty good year.
Yeah, I mean, another thing is I got into Star Wars Legion this year, but that game didn't come out in 2019. But I got into it, although they have come out with a new expansion. Like a big expansion, which was the first game when it came out. It was Stormtroopers versus Rebels,
right?
From like episodes 4, 5, and 6, and now they've released a complete new 2 factions, which is basically clones versus droids from the prequels, the 1, 2, and 3. I'm sticking, I think, with the 4, 5, and 6 guys, just because I have nothing wrong particularly. I mean, there's things wrong with the prequels, but and I like clones, but man, I don't want to build those little skinny little droids. I think that's one of the reasons why I'm staying away from them. They are very spindly. What was in 2019 like for GameFor?
Oh, let's see. Some highlights here.
Yeah.
So this was our first full year, right?
Yeah, because we launched this in 2018 in March.
Spring, yeah.
Yeah.
So we surpassed 40,000 registered users
Nice.
right at the end of the year.
Mm-hmm.
So that seems to be a good pool of people to post events and find a game with.
Yeah, absolutely.
Another big highlight was Gen Con reaching out to us and working with them to help promote the new Gen Con pop-up, which was basically their local version of going to Gen Con at your friendly local gaming store if you couldn't make it to the actual Gen Con.
Yeah, they came with this new concept this year about, because not everybody can make it to Gen Con, even though it seems like everybody's there because there's like 70,000 folks. But as it turns out, there's plenty of people who are just like, yeah, I can't do it, or it's too expensive, or it's whatever. And so they wanted to work with a bunch of local stores to be able to have events, and then you can kind of feel like you're at Gen Con. And they reached out to us and said, look, we want to make sure our events are posted on GameFor. So we took it a step further and said, well, how about if we make this kind of special icon next to those events and all that
make
stuff.
them stand out. Yep.
And that worked out real nicely, and it was helpful for both them and for us, because then they also posted about us and stuff like that in their social media and all that jazz.
And I think they're planning to expand it even further next year. So
yeah, and they've told us, I don't think that we're out of line, because I think they've mentioned this other places, but I think that they've said they would like to do it not just at Gen Con.
Yeah,
like during Gen Con, they'd like to do it maybe once a quarter.
Right,
you know what I mean, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, but that's maybe a bit down the road.
Yeah. Put a lot more activity. We seem to be getting a lot fewer of the emails of there's nobody in my area, and a lot more of the success messages of, hey, I found these people in my game. I now have a full gaming group. I mean,
when we first launched, obviously, when you start a network, like the person, I've said this a bunch of times, the person with the first fax machine had nobody to fax.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So when you first start out, and when we first launched, there was, people who were like, hey, this is a really great idea. And then they would hop in there and download it. And then they'd be like, there's nobody on this app within 500 miles of me. And we're like, well, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And sometimes it's because you live in Wyoming and nobody lives within 500 miles of you at all. You know what I mean? There's that too. But other times it's just, it was because it was early on or whatever. And as we've been growing, that's becoming a bit less of an issue. So that's also good. And you're right. We do get messages via Facebook message or email and stuff like that, or I even see it too sometimes on Sundays when I do my live shows for my YouTube channel. I'll have people be like, hey, I got a game in yesterday with someone that I met through GameFor, and I got to play, whatever, Age of Sigmar, I think was the most recent one that I saw someone post last week. Very frequently when that comes up, then that's also a great way for me to segue into talking a little bit about GameFor on my live show. But yeah, so that's been good to see more adoption and things like that. Obviously, you always want more,
right?
We
want all the gamers.
We want all the people.
Yes.
So was that like 7 some billion?
Yes.
We can do that.
All of them tabletop gamers, absolutely.
No, I mean I'm talking about just everybody. We're just
I know.
Get everybody.
Right, that's what I'm saying. But we'll make them tabletop gamers because they'll be in there.
I thought everybody was a tabletop gamer.
Zuckerberg.
Oh well, yeah. I don't know. Yeah. And so we want to, and we've got something we're going to talk about in a little bit that's going to also hopefully expand on that to some degree. And then this was our first year also doing tournaments.
Right. Yeah. We partnered with Adepticon. And
for those of you who are not into miniatures, Adepticon is like the biggest convention for tabletop miniature wargamer folks. It takes place outside of Chicago in the spring, and it's about 6,000 people.
6 or 7, yeah. And then we ran their Kill Team events. Definitely a learning year for both sides.
Sure.
And we kind of started with that small one to kind of understand, what they needed, what we were able to provide. And it looks like we'll be running possibly more events this coming year.
Potentially, yeah. What we're trying to do with this, so this is actually a separate piece of software. It's not something that's in the GameFor app. We're calling it currently GameFor Tournament Systems. And the idea is that eventually what we want to be able to do is make it available for free to verified stores. So you're a verified store and you want to hold X-Wing event or a Settlers of Catan tournament or whatever, and you don't want to have to try to figure out a bunch of paperwork and stuff like that. We would have a relatively simple web interface to allow you to be able to have access to that information. And then down the road, potentially maybe even be able to make it so that like when you go to a tournament, then maybe that can come back and be shown in your profile, like,
Right.
especially, or maybe if you like win a tournament, maybe you get a special thing. I don't know, it's hard to say, but we want to be able to tie that in a little bit. But right now, the idea behind the tournament software, the tournament systems, is to eventually be able to release it to stores so that they can then use it if they're a verified store. But right now, we've been kind of testing it to some degree.
Yeah, that's
you know.
we want to make sure it's a good product and easy to use, easy to manage.
And the folks from Adepticon reached out to us because they know us.
Rebuild software and
and
they know you.
Right, yeah. And so they were like, hey, do you guys think you could look into this? And we said, well, we've been kind of thinking about it a little bit, and we kind of went through that stuff. And yeah, this year, 2019, I mean, yeah, that very first round on the first day was a little bit of a learning curve.
Right.
And there were people there who were running the event, and it was basically you sitting there taking the information in and all that kind of stuff, everything like that. But by like the second round,
yeah, by the second round we were pretty much
stuff was dialed in.
Yeah,
and they had tournaments for Kill Team like the entire.
Yeah, it was
not on Thursday. It was Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and by Sunday, like you were kind of.
I was almost bored.
Right,
which was a good thing.
Yeah, no, you want that. You want the software to work that well.
In between rounds, I could go and talk to people and check out the game, actually watch some of the Kill Team games.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, the very first one, I was not having a good time.
It was a bunch of stress.
It was a bunch of stress. I was coding on the fly. Like,
yeah.
I kind of looked like the guys on the Silicon Valley.
That show?
Right, yeah, when they, something's gone wrong and they're, like, hacking stuff out and they need it done in 5 minutes type thing.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, no. So it's that's something that we're looking at, like I said, going forward with and doing that. So yeah, the GameFor tournament systems. Hopefully, you'll hear more about it in the future. But we've been testing that and kind of going forward on that stuff. So yeah, that was the start of that this year, 2019.
Yeah.
So for 2020, what are we looking at? This is again stuff that we're excited about in the industry and games and cool junk.
The Monster Fight Club terrain is going to be shipped early this year.
Yeah. So Monster Fight Club is a company that that just started last year, 2019, I think.
From the Gale Force 9 people.
A couple of folks who used to work at Gale Force 9, and Gale Force 9 is known for making Battlefield in a Box, which is kind of like pre-painted terrain. And sometimes it's hard to find. Like sometimes they will make stuff and then it will go to print, and then people will be like, hey, I want more of that. And they're like, well... And so Monster Fight Club wants to kind of do the same type of stuff, but they want to be able to do it, I think, in a slightly cheaper fashion, and they want to keep stuff in stock a little bit more. At least is what the president explained to us at Reno when we first saw those first cool trees.
Yes.
So they had a Kickstarter, and they've produced these, or they're about to get finished producing these awesome modular pre-painted trees for using on your 28 millimeter scale-ish. You could be using them for D&D.
Yeah, I plan
on
on
a lot
using,
of stuff.
Yeah, outdoor for D&D or for games like Rangers of Shadow Deep, right? Shadow Deep.
Yes, Rangers of Shadow Deep, and I'm really looking forward to seeing with the other stuff that they come up with too.
Yeah, and they're even doing some of their own games as well.
They did like a board game, I think, at least, or a card game. I forget which. So yeah, they're kind of moving into a lot of different areas. Which, to be fair, Gale Force 9 has done the same thing. Like they do both terrain and also games as well.
Yeah,
and then now they're attached with Battlefront, which means that they also then do Flames of War and all that kind of attached stuff too. They're all kind of one company. But yeah, Monster Fight Club is got a cool. Those trees were, when I first saw them, we saw them at Reno.
Yeah, Gamma Reno.
Back in March, and we were just like, that's a really super smart idea. It's like a plastic tree.
Looks like
it looks like a dead tree, and then it has this plastic shell you put over it that has all the leaves on it. So you can either have dead tree or a live tree, and then you could also take another tree's leaf cap and put it on top of the first one and make a much taller tree. Yeah,
or you put it on the ground and
now it's a bush, right? Yeah,
and it's you would think, okay, well that's kind of interesting, but it looks phenomenal.
Yeah, they're really super well sculpted, and again, like I said, they're pre-paints.
Yeah,
like they have a decent paint job. I mean, admittedly, it's a lot of dry brush, but it's still, they look good.
Yeah.
The other thing, and this is a little related, the next thing that's on our list here is Cyberpunk 2077. Now, you're talking actually about Cyberpunk Red.
Yes. Well,
right, which is the RPG,
Right.
pen and paper.
Right.
Cyberpunk 2077 is the video game,
Right.
which I am looking forward to.
And
I'm
they're very closely related
to some degree. Yeah. And the reason I mentioned it has something to do with Monster Fight Club is they're also making miniatures.
That's right.
To play Cyberpunk Red with.
Right.
For your RPG. But Cyberpunk Red is being produced by the folks at R. Talsorian. And they've been doing Cyberpunk for a very long time. The last version was called Cyberpunk 2020, but now it is 2020, so we can't use that one anymore. Right. And so, yeah.
They're the same people that Witcher, right?
No.
No, they're not Witcher?
They might have had a Witcher RPG, now that you mention it.
I think the Witcher RPG was theirs.
Well, it might have been. But the Witcher video game is the same people who are doing the Cyberpunk 2077 video game.
Right.
Yeah, but I don't know about the RPG. Maybe. There might be a Witcher. I don't think so. You're more the RPG dude.
I think so.
Yeah. I'm going to take your word for it. But yeah, the Cyberpunk Red RPG is, I think, a lot of interest to a lot of people, and I think that's going to be very interesting. Like I said, am mostly interested in the video game, which is coming out in April.
Yeah, the video game looks amazing.
Yeah, so I can see myself, like, I don't play a ton of video games anymore, but I'm like, yeah, I'll play that. So yeah, that's going to be kind of cool. Cyberpunk, for those of you who don't know, it's very, it's there's a lot of body augmentation. You have a robot eye or a electric arm or whatever.
Right.
And it's you're playing generally outside of the law to some degree,
right? Like a hacker or
like
activist,
or like someone who's like you have to go in and steal this thing and we have to pay you to do it and that kind of stuff.
A runner,
exactly, yeah. There have been other games like that as well. I mean, like Shadowrun is probably the big one that a lot of people are familiar with. But the difference between Shadowrun and Cyberpunk is that Shadowrun there's also magic and elves and dwarves and dragons and junk. And there's none of that in Cyberpunk. Cyberpunk is a lot harder sci-fi kind of in comparison. So it's a lot about BioWare or is it BioWare? I guess like wetware and like body augmentations and machine guns and hacking and cool stuff like that. The next one I think is a little bit more you than me.
Oh yeah, Frosthaven. So anybody that's probably been around the tabletop stuff in the past 2 years has probably heard of Gloomhaven, the gigantic box of board game RPG goodness.
It is a big box. That is a big heavy box, and it is. You're right. It's like a gateway game between board games and RPGs.
Right. Yeah. And I know my group, gaming group, has played quite a lot of Gloomhaven. Frosthaven was announced, I believe, at PAX Unplugged.
Yeah, I think so.
Just a little while ago. That's coming. I believe the Kickstarter is in 2020, and that's basically Gloomhaven 2. But from the early stuff, it looks almost like it's going to have maybe some 3D stuff, so it'll be less cardboard, maybe more plastic, modular.
Right, yeah, like there's a lot of, like the boards, like it's cardboard, like dungeon crawling to some degree. But from what it looks like, the stuff that they've been announcing, it looks like there's going to be more plastic bits that come with it to make. So, like, it's not going to be like full 3D printed, like, your dungeon tiles and stuff like that, but there will be actual physical things that you set down that are maybe like a ruined pillar or a shrine or something like that,
So I know I'm very curious to see how that
normal
goes.
Gloomhaven. If you had to guess, how many models does that come with?
For the cardboard? Oh.
No. I mean the plastic.
Oh, it just comes with like just the main 16
like the
characters.
Heroes. And
stuff, the heroes are the only ones.
Like all the monsters and junk like that are all cardboard. Yeah.
Yep.
So I wonder if the monsters are going to be cardboard in this one. Are they just making some of the terrain plastic, or if they're going to have plastic like goblins and stuff too?
Yeah.
That'd be kind of cool. Yeah, no, I'd like to try it. I mean, I actually won a copy of it, which I then eventually sold to you.
You sold to me.
Yeah. But I was at a thing, and it was like a door prize, and so I was like, oh, that's really cool. And then I picked it up, and I was like, whoa. But yeah, it is a big monstrous kind of game, and monstrous in that it's also super popular. So, let me see here. Sisters of Battle coming in plastic in 2020. Now, technically, they showed up in 2019, sorta. For those of you that don't know and don't follow miniatures and stuff like that, Games Workshop is a company, and they have a game called Warhammer, and then they have another game called Warhammer 40,000, or whatever. Anyway, so they've got this sci-fi game, and the Sisters of Battle is a force, a faction that has been in the Warhammer 40K lore for a very long time, and they're well beloved by a smallish group. Not everybody was into the Sisters of Battle, but they're kind of almost like warrior nun type folks.
Okay.
A lot of guns and stuff like that and everything, and so, but they have not updated the models in forever. They're still kind of like you're still metal like that. I don't think they up until literally like about a month ago they had never made them really in plastic, which the majority of the miniature line is now all plastic. So, people had been for a long time saying, when are you guys going to make them in plastic? And then I don't remember if it was 2000. I think it might have been 2018 Adepticon.
Yeah,
it was some convention I was at in 2018 where they announced, hey, in 2019 we're going to come out with Sisters of Battle in plastic.
And they reached out to the community to give like the feedback and all.
Yeah, that was the first time. Like Games Workshop has never been like that before, where they were like, hey, we're going to show you how, like, what in progress, like what we're doing, and like what do you think?
Sketches
and then give us, like sketches and character design, and then like here's a 3D render and like all that kind of stuff, and then they would listen to like people talk back and say, well, I think this is silly or this is cool or whatever.
Right.
And that's something they've never done, so that's very cool. And then they did technically release Plastic Sisters in 2019, like they said they were gonna, but it was only like a relatively limited edition, like special box that had a bunch of models in it. And but in 2020 they'll be releasing the entire line, not limited edition, and they will also be a little bit more posable. Like right now, the ones that come in this box that they did release in 2019, they kind of go together only one way.
Okay.
So that's the way that you put them together. Normally, in a lot of Games Workshop stuff, you have the ability to kind of customize a little bit within the kit.
Okay.
We talked before about
the bits and stuff.
Right. Yeah. So that type of kit will be coming out for Sisters in 2020. So I'm not going to build an entire army. It's not going to happen. But I would like to build a kill team for Sisters of Battle, and I can use some of the stuff that, because I got a copy of the relatively limited edition 2019 box, and I can use some of that stuff, but I also want to modify a little bit or use some of the other. So I'm looking forward to some of those coming out personally. And then we've got Car Wars from Steve Jackson Games. Car Wars is a game that was much beloved by me, at least, and other folks as well.
And you went down to Austin?
Yeah, I went down to Austin this year, 2019, because they were showing off like the first kind of public beta of this new version of Car Wars, Car Wars has been around for 35 years or something like that, and they have not updated anything on it for a really long time. And now they're coming out with what they're calling 6th edition, which is a very different edition. It reminds me, honestly, a lot more of the Star Wars X-Wing game.
I was going to say that, it seems like they took a lot of...
It's a very streamlined in comparison rules system. And so I'm interested. I think I might end up pulling the trigger on the Kickstarter, which I generally don't like to do these days anymore.
You don't have much time left.
Yeah, I know. I only but I don't know. I think I might still do it though, and then we'll see how it goes. But I am looking forward to checking that out. It's like I said, it's gonna be very different. It's not gonna be little cardboard chips anymore. You're actually gonna have a little plastic kind of car and that kind of stuff and everything. So we'll see how that goes. So conventions and events that we are planning to attend.
Yes.
So probably end of February-ish, we're looking to go to a local convention that is here in Wisconsin. It's in Manitowoc.
Yes.
And it's a convention called Fire and Ice. And so we're looking to probably go to that, not to have a booth and all that kind of stuff, but just to hang out and play and have
a lot of
time.
Local people that are friends or go.
Yeah. So if you happen to be in the Manitowoc area sometime in late February and you want to go to a fun gaming convention, look up Fire and Ice, and then maybe we'll see you there. After that, as far as the group, we're going to be going to the Gamma Expo is now what it's called. It's no longer called the Gamma Trade Show.
Right. They have Expo this year. Yep.
And that is in Reno, Nevada, and it is in early March.
Yep, it's the week before March Madness.
Yeah.
So, and 8th through 12th or something like that.
There we will have a booth.
We do have a booth there.
The reason that place is great for us, and the reason that we bothered to have a booth in the whole deal, is because the people who are walking up and down the aisles are all store owners and store employees.
Yep.
So they are the people that we do want to try to target, and they're more interested in trying to get their problems solved. Like how do I get my
more
store calendar,
store,
how do I get my store calendar out to more people and all that kind of stuff. So it's good for that. Plus, then all the booths there are also all publishers, and they're not getting swamped with sales and having to constantly focus on
They're
that.
just
So you
promoting
can
new
have a
stuff,
little
yeah.
bit more conversation with them, and then we can talk to them about things. Like one of the things that we'll be doing while we're there as well, besides the trade show, is we're going to be giving a seminar this year
Right. Yeah.
about does your game need a companion app?
Right. So basically, because we've done lots of apps and understand the space pretty well, one of the things that we get questioned a lot of times is, well, do I need an app?
Right.
And so that's kind of where we're kind of talking to that industry about
The publishers.
the publishers about whether they need an app for their game, whether it's directly part of the game or it's a companion piece. So like think of like KeyForge, where you can track your decks or something, where it kind of complements the game.
But you felt like other games like the XCOM board game, didn't that require the app?
Right.
Yeah. So, so that's kind of part of it, right? You
Right.
know?
And or what about PWAs are a new thing, and people have lots of questions about what that means.
I don't know what PWA means.
It's basically a web app.
Oh, sure. Right. Yeah.
It's a little bit,
Yeah. So instead of making it an app that you have to download from either the App Store or Google Play, it's more of a programming application thing, but it's done through a web browser, and it's way easier.
Yeah.
Because then on our end, we don't have to write and deploy twice to both stores. We just change things.
But you can still get an icon on your
Right, exactly. It acts like an app on your phone, but it's actually going to the web, and then that means that it's cheaper to produce, and it's also cheaper for us and quicker for us to change.
But it has drawbacks as well. So we'll go with that, or just sometimes just a mobile friendly website will do.
So yeah, we'll be there in Reno in early March, and that's a great trade show. We get lots of kind of industry feedback and deals, and talk to a lot of people and all that kind of stuff. And this year, being the first year that we're doing, and there's plenty of buffets that we like to go to. Mainly just the two that we go to.
Yeah, just the two.
There's that one and then the sushi one.
Yeah, the sushi and then the gigantic one.
Right. Yeah. And anyway, so yeah, that's that we're looking forward to as well. Shortly on the heels of that is then Adepticon 2020.
Yep.
And that's going to be, like I said before, outside of Chicago, so Schaumburg, Illinois. And it is in the later part of March.
It's basically 2 weeks.
Yeah. And it is it's a miniatures convention. It's a miniatures wargaming convention that is the biggest one in the country. Like I said before, 5,000, 6,000, 7,000, somewhere in there, people, a ton of people. It's an amazing, if you're into miniatures, it's an amazing thing, and you need to go to it. We'll be there, hopefully doing some of the tournament stuff. If not, at the very least, we'll probably be walking around and talking
playing
to people,
games, doing demos.
Like yeah, again, like not planning on having a booth.
No, spending way too much.
Yeah, we'll be doing that. But yeah, so that's the next thing right after Reno, and then after that, I don't really see anything in my future other than maybe Origins. Like Origins Origins is like Gen Con, but like a third the size.
Mm-hmm.
And it is in
Columbus,
Ohio, and it's in June. And so, we forgot to mention Tabletop Minions Expo.
I thought about that earlier.
Yeah.
I meant to write it in, but
I have a little tiny miniatures convention that I do here in Wisconsin. It's like literally like last year there was like 70 people. It's very small.
Right, but we have lots of fun.
Oh yeah, it's a hoot, but it's real small. But then right after that is when, and that's in early June. It's like the 6th and 7th, and then Origins is right after.
Actually, before that will be ACD Game Day.
Oh, you're right. That's out of order.
Yep.
ACD Game Day is in May.
Yep.
Yeah. So ACD is a distributor.
Right.
So they're the people who
help ship games.
Yeah,
and
they
products.
buy the games from the manufacturers and then sell them to the stores, or kind of like that thing. Because then that way the stores don't have to contact every manufacturer; they just contact ACD.
Right. Think of it like a drink distributor.
Right. Exactly.
Like yep.
And so they have a thing called ACD Games Day, which takes place in Madison, Wisconsin, which is where they're based out of, which is not too far away from us, and it works out real nice. And they also have a trade show, and that for us is a big benefit too, because again, it's the same deal. It's store owners and store employees walking up and down the aisles, and it's manufacturers and publishers.
Very inexpensive for us to go.
Yeah, exactly. It's super cheap for us to go. So
and lots of good reach, especially around our areas.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, that one comes before TMX, and then after TMX is Origins, which I believe I'm going to, but I don't know. Like we're not going to have a booth there.
No.
If I'm going, it's mainly because I'm going to do that paint teaching thing for for WizKids and Vallejo again.
Right.
but that's where we're at with that. After Origins, then there's not much really until August, and then that's Gen Con, which I will be going again to, and maybe
finally, possibly.
Could be.
This could be the year.
Again, not going to have a booth.
No.
Because they're wicked expensive.
Oh, yeah. And
and also we're talking 70,000 last year people at that event. And, there's benefits. Like the reason that I go is because of my YouTube channel. It's like a business thing. So I go and it's like I have meetings with manufacturers and stuff because kind of everybody goes there, even though my genre of the four, the tabletop wargaming, is the least represented at Gen Con. Like it's the smallest of the four genres there. But it's also a good place to meet and talk to people about GameFor and stuff like that. Like last year, 2019, the Gen Con, like I gave 3 seminars at Gen Con. Two of them were about YouTubery and how to do that stuff, and then one was just about GameFor, and that worked out nice. Let's see. After that, Nova is in late August, early September, and that's the Northern Virginia Open, Nova Open.
Right, just outside of D.C.
Yes, just outside of D.C. And it's also miniatures, like it's a big wargaming thing. I will be probably going to that as well this year, and that's I won't be teaching this year, but I will go and attend and have a good time. It's a good convention. It's very tournament heavy, but there's also a decent amount of hobby stuff as well. It's getting better and better all the time. Like hobby classes, Adepticon's number 1, and then Nova is number 2 right now. But still a good time. And then I don't know if it's in November or December of 2020.
November.
Is it November? PAX Unplugged. That is in Philadelphia. We've not gone before.
No, but every year we get more and more people asking us why we're not there.
Yeah, I mean, we probably still wouldn't go into a booth, but
there seems to be enough people that were like, oh, we wanted to have a meeting with you. So.
Yeah, that might be one of those things, honestly, where, because my wife's sister lives in Philadelphia, so we might go and like at least say hi and visit and go for dinner or something like that. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. Maybe not. But yeah, PAX Unplugged is the only other convention I can think of over the course of the year. So lastly, I think we should touch on some of the plans for 2020 for GameFor.
Yeah. What are we going to be doing?
Well, we're going to change all the colors on the fonts. No.
Make the font one
just
pixel
slightly larger. Yes, slightly. Yeah, we make everything bold. No. So one of the big things is something. It's a initiative we've been working on for a while, which we're calling badging. So like when you are playing your Xbox or your PlayStation, you either get achievements or trophies, I think is the way it works. And there's a lot of different apps out there. Like you're a big fan of the Untapped app, which is like a beer.
Drinking socially is their tagline. Yes,
right, but it's like as you drink new beers and stuff like that, you get to say, yes, I drank this beer.
And rate them and all that fun stuff. Yep.
And you get lots of badges for doing that. Now, these are not physical badges you can wear on your shirt. No,
but
they're like a thing, and people look at your profile and go, oh, that's cool.
They're digital sirens.
Exactly, yeah, exactly. So we're going to be adding that into GameFor. Now, a lot of you will probably be like, well, I don't care about badges. Well, I get that. I'm not a big badge guy myself necessarily, but there are people out there that do like that kind of thing, and it does help with engagement and stuff. So we're looking at that. But we're also adding another feature that's kind of adjacent to badges.
Right.
So
this is probably the most exciting part of it.
Right, exactly. For I think a lot of things. So what we're looking at doing is we're also adding, when we launch the badges, we're also launching a referral code. So everybody's profile will now have a 5-digit, we think.
Yeah, probably.
That was, as of today, that was the plan. A 5-digit,
character
referral code. It could be numbers or letters. And so you have that referral code, and then you have a friend who doesn't have GameFor, and you go, look, you should sign up for GameFor. It's really cool. And it's like, oh, okay. And if you do, then use this referral code. And then when you get a person to sign up that referral code, you will get a badge for that particular month. Let's say it's, I don't know, March of 2020. So you get a March 2020 badge. And the person that you referred will get a badge that basically connotates that they were referred. You can only get referred once, but as a person who's referring people, you can refer as many people as you want over and over and over again. Then, at the end of every month, we're going to have a drawing for the pair. So a person who signs somebody else up, both of those
Right.
people, if they get picked, they will then win.
Right.
And then what they will do is they will each get a gift card to their local shop. So
Yep.
we'll find out what their local shop is. We'll call the local shop, say, whatever, work it out, get them a gift card so they can go into their local shop and get some free stuff. We haven't decided exactly what it is yet. As far as price, we were kicking around between
I think $100 each.
Yeah, we started I think at 50, but we're thinking maybe about $100 each. And then so you could potentially then win by doing that. Now that's the only all the other badges you can potentially get don't have any attachment to that. It's just the referral badges.
And there might be other contests in the future.
Sure,
and
down
this
the
contest
road.
might change. But
This
for
is
right
the starting
now,
one.
the main goal behind this is to basically reward all the awesome users out there that are basically helping us grow grassroots.
Exactly, yeah. So the thing is that if you sign up 7 people this month, you get 7 chances to win, and
Right.
each of those people also gets a chance as well.
Right.
But if then they go and they start signing some people up, they could potentially, well, no, it wouldn't. They couldn't win both the sign up one and
No,
the other
it's the
one
pair,
because
but-
it's the pair. It's always
Right,
pairs,
but they
yeah.
have the more time. But every time you
Yeah, exactly. If you got signed up at the beginning of the month and then you signed up 6 more people, you would still technically have 7 chances to win.
Yes.
Yeah. So,
and then we've got mentioned earlier we have 40,000 plus people. Those people will be able to go and put in if they were referred by somebody else.
Mhm.
They will be able to go and enter that in. So and it will count.
Retroactively.
So that first month you'll even be able to add your buddy in that recommended you on the app.
right. Yeah, we don't want to make it so that it's something where you can only it's only going forward. Where if you told this guy to do it and both of you want to agree, well, then do it. And
Right.
That's fine. Yeah, so that's definitely one of the big features that's coming in 2020, early-ish 2020.
Yeah, if it hasn't launched by the time this comes out,
Really?
'cause,
Well,
yeah,
yeah.
it's and it
I mean,
might
it's close. It's programming's real close. Yeah.
Yeah,
But I think testing.
Yeah.
No,
Well,
I-
we've been running tests already starting today. So.
Well, yeah, that's true. So there's that, and
But through the month of January, it should be out.
okay, yeah, and so that's going to be really kind of cool. And then we will be adding more badges and stuff down the road. Some of them might be contest ones, other ones might just be more cosmetic ones. But they'll show up in your profile, and you'll be able to show your friends, "Hey, look, I got the such and such badge." So that'll be very cool. And it will also help to grow the network and make it so that more people are using GameFor, which just makes it better for everybody because then there's more people to play with.
Mm-hmm.
The other next thing we're adding in over the course of 2020 is something it's basically publisher integration. So
Yeah, we started kicking this around at last year's Gamma show.
right, yeah,
I think that's when we first kind of
2019.
had the ask, and we've been kind of growing and talking and waiting for a time when we had time.
Yeah, we've had publishers who have been asking us for features. Like currently, we service the gamers and the stores
and groups and clubs.
and groups and clubs. Good point. And so we also want to be able to work in something for publishers. So we're looking at one of the first things we're looking at doing is making it publishers. Many game publishers have demo teams. Some of them call them different things. I know that in the Malifaux game, they're called henchmen. GW used to have them, and they were called Outriders or something like that. But there was, every different company's got their own kind of demo team who are people who sit at their local shop and just say, "Hey, look, I'm going to teach you how to play this game," and then maybe you'll be interested in buying it. And they're usually doing it because they're going to get some sort of benefit. Like for every 2 hours I do demos of your game at this convention, I get credit that I can then use to buy a game or a T-shirt or whatever. It's really hard coordinating all that junk. And a lot of game companies don't have the time or the manpower, so we're looking at figuring out ways to make that happen potentially within GameFor.
Right. Yeah. Yes. From the managing the who the people are, letting them post events easier, coming up with good copy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's one of
Letting
the
stores request demos.
right. So if you're a store, you can be like,
target.
"Hey, I see that you're a GameFor verified publisher. We would be interested in getting some demos at our store," and then that message goes through and stuff like that.
Right.
So yeah, it's just going to be more exposure, more spreading things around that way, and we're looking at doing that kind of stuff. We're looking at updating our alerts, our notifications to some degree,
And searches. Yeah.
and then search is also a big deal. We've had people asking us about that quite a bit. Like if I type in, I don't know, X-Wing.
If you want to, X-Wing
then-
or like Kill Team, and you want to know hey, every time that someone within 50 miles creates an event called for Kill Team,
Mm-hmm.
let me know, or creates a LFP for Kill Team.
Right, yeah.
Or,
And even, we've also talked about being able to do more of a keyword search. So you type in X-Wing, and it will show you, here's 2 events within 250 miles of you, or 100 miles, or 10 miles, depending on how things go. That here's some events that are then. But then also, if a store is like, we sell this game, this game, this game, this game, this game, and X-Wing, then you could also see that. And if you've got a group or a club that likes to play X-Wing, you find that information, whatever. So we want to have the keyword search stuff kind of expand to make the app work a little bit better for those kind of things. And then, we've got the more tournaments, hopefully. Like, we want to be able to, like we were talking before, move that tournament stuff into something that eventually stores can start to use.
Yeah, probably the second half of the year is probably what we'll be targeting. But, it depends on interest and work amounts.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And then lastly, and I'm seeing this on my notes, and it just says Project X coming in the summer. And I don't know. Isn't that it's the movie with Matthew, what's his name, and the monkey? Matthew Broderick?
I know which one you're talking about.
Yeah. Is that what we're doing? We're getting a monkey?
Yes.
I don't think we want an office monkey, do they? Monkeys are strong.
Yeah, but you could train them.
I don't know. I don't know what Project X is off the top of my head. Now that I've mentioned it,
it's the. So we've
got, no, I do. Yeah, we were talking about this before. I totally flaked.
See, I thought you were playing along.
I was honestly forgetful because that's kind of
okay. So there's
I started thinking about monkeys.
There's a fairly good sized project that the team will be starting to work on probably in the spring. And we're hoping it's going to really help. It'll probably be under the GameFor banner, or at least closely tied to it.
I think we're going to kind of it's going to be kind of a GameFor network sort of a situation, and it's going to be more web based. It's not app based. But it's of more interest to gamers, to tabletop gamers. That is going to be designed to kind of help. We don't want to go too far into it, but it's for helping gamers find other stuff that's related to gaming to some degree. And that's about as far as we want to go with that.
Basically, we found some niches that we think we know that we would use.
Yeah.
And so far, all the people that have been brought in to kind of the know are also thinking it's something they would use. So
Yeah. And it's a situation, too, where we can definitely then, with this, also because it's going to be all web-based, it's quicker to spin up on our part. And again, we're not having to go through the Apple app improvement, all that jazz and whatnot. So but it would be still part of GameFor, kind of, and related. Like, I'm assuming we could probably use the same username and password.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So if you've got a username and password for GameFor, the app, then you'd be able to easily use it. Well, yeah, you can do that on the web now. This is why I'm not the programmer and I'm the other guy. But yeah, so that'll be part of that thing, and that's coming later in the year as well. Is there anything else?
I think that seems like a pretty full plate.
This is a long wrap up. I didn't know the end of the year, beginning of the year thing. I thought it was going to be a shorter episode, and I was wrong.
Yeah.
Thanks again for listening to this episode of the GameFor Podcast. If you've got any questions or comments and you're watching on YouTube, please leave a comment below. If you're listening via your favorite podcast player, or you just aren't into the whole YouTube comment section thing, then you can feel free to reach out to us at email. No, you can feel free to reach out to us via email at podcast@iamgamefor.com. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and also TikTok, strangely. Lastly, to find out more about the GameFor platform designed to connect tabletop gamers, please check out our website at www.iamgamefor.com. That is www.iamgamefor.com. Thank you.